Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Soaring Through Adversity podcast. I am Renee Bregelet, the co founder and CEO of our foundation, and your host. Each month, we amplify the often unheard voices of individuals with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities, as well as those who support them. Voices filled with resilience, wisdom, and unstoppable strength. Through raw, real conversations, you'll hear how they rise above challenges, defy expectations, and discover purpose. These are the stories of people living victoriously beyond limitations. If you're ready to be inspired, to shift your perspective, and to champion true inclusion, you're in the right place. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. We are here to define what's possible one story at a time. Today, I'm honored to welcome Carolyn Dowdy, the founder of a nonprofit, Caregiver Mental Wellness. Carolyn understands caregiving is not a concept, but as a calling, one she has lived for more than 16 years while caring for her parents and her husband. Her professional background spans banking, operations, HR, and leadership, including helping launch 2 startup banks in Georgia. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business from Tusculum University, completed advanced financial leadership training at the University of Texas at Austin, and is a graduate of the Nonprofit Management Institute, equipping her to lead with both wisdom and compassion. What truly drives Carolyn's work is her deep concern for caregiver burnout, especially among families supporting loved ones with disabilities while juggling work, responsibility, and emotional strain. Through years of research and lived experience, she founded Caregiver Mental Wellness to bring visibility, understanding, and real support to caregivers who are often overlooked, yet carry so much. Today's episode is The Weight They Carry, the Caregiver Conversation. Well, welcome, Carolyn.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate you agreeing to come on and share your story with me and our listeners today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. So let's get started.
Okay.
You've had quite an education and career, but now you're in the nonprofit world. Kind of like me with Victory Advantage, they're about the same age, and I'm sure some days you're as overwhelmed as I am with trying to help everyone that reaches out. But tell me about your day. What's your day like?
What's my day like? Oh, Lord. Well, I go by my training and I get up and I have my quiet time. I do my meditation to calm my nervous system, and that's just part of my practice. So it's very important to have a practice and get in the habit of doing things to take care of your well-being. And then I just have my to-do list like you do in a nonprofit. I'm either working on administrative stuff, which you know about,
Yes.
or the networking meetings, or I'm going to training or expos. Tomorrow I've got an expo wellness, and so that's going to be 3 events since Saturday. So that's why my hair doesn't look perfect tonight. I've been flying by the seat of my pants and my hair's on fire.
Yeah, I understand that. But I like how you started out because you are living what you're teaching. And I admire that individual. It's kind of like how your parents used to say, how's that go? Don't do as I do as I say. But you're actually doing what you say to do. And I really like that. And let's give out a shout out to Council on Aging, because that's the wellness expo you're doing tomorrow, right?
Yes, it is.
This year, we're not going to, but they have an event that's coming up in May that's called Courts and Forks, and we're going to be doing that one as a Victory Advantage. So I'm excited about that. But let me ask you something. How long ago did you start Caregiver Mental Awareness?
Well, we started the nonprofit back in August of 2023, but originally I started as a business. And then I realized that there was so much demand that I saw that I wasn't going to be able to carry it, because we've got to bring awareness to raise money for these caregivers because they're insane. So I knew the things and the challenges that we might run into. So we started it 3 years ago, but before we started the nonprofit, when my husband had his stroke back in 2017, and then in 2018, I really started studying on how to save myself because I was so distraught and I wasn't getting what I needed from the system as a caregiver. And so once I started studying, just started opening up, I thought, God, this is a huge issue. The millions of caregivers, and I didn't even know I was called a caregiver. We're so unseen. The whole 10 years I took care of my parents part-time from a distance, not one time did I know as a caregiver, and I didn't know caregiver burnout was a real thing. But when I did that first year, really studying and getting into it, I realized, hey, I'm a caregiver and caregiver burnout is a real thing. And that's how I saved myself. So I did almost 5 years of research in depth on this, wrote papers. I took college courses, wrote papers about it. And I realized how it's affecting the family, the caregivers, the community, and also in the workplace. It's a big issue. So we did that 5 years before we even started the nonprofit.
I had never thought about that either until, I had the brain tumor surgery and I couldn't do anything for myself. And I realized as time went on, the people that had helped kind of went away. They just went on to their own lives, and Ray was left to take care of me. And I watched him just burn out. It was so hard for him because when he wasn't taking care of me, he still had the laundry. He was working because I couldn't work. So he was taking on my slack there. And it was a lot. And so then I got on the advisory board for an organization called Johnny and Friends, which is a disability ministry. And I went and volunteered at a retreat. And I'd done that several years. And they put so much emphasis on the caregiver. I really learned to love this organization because they saw the person that is unseen. The attention goes on the person that needs help, and you get lost in the mix. So I'm so proud to have met you and have the opportunity to do this podcast with you because you have so much to offer. You have so much to offer.
Yes, thank you. One thing that I'd like to bring out, a lot of times the caregiver's unseen, and the main issue that I have that I'm going to advocate and hope to make changes in the future, I don't have time to work on it now, is that we need to have a standard definition for a caregiver. Because the thing is we've got parents that do not hear that label. 50% of caregivers, I heard a specialist talking about it on care. She's an expert in caregiving and very well connected. And she said 50% of caregivers do not label themselves caregivers, so they're not hearing the message that caregiver burnout's real. And then that just sets them up because they stay in this stress. They don't realize burnout's real. And by being a caregiver, we just automatically put other people first and keep pouring from an empty cup. And so parents, this is one of the things that we're doing now is in trying to put in all of our writings and publications is parent and other caregivers. We've got a big issue now with the parents because we've got 1 in every 31 child in the U.S. are on the autism level. Plus we got 40 to 60%, depending on which stats and what are in those stats, like learning disabilities, have chronically ill children like cancer, diabetes, and other things, asthma. And these parents, especially in the sandwich generation that are taking care of aging parents from a distance, we call those part-time caregivers, caring for parents from a distance. And then they may have children. They may have a special needs child or chronically ill. And these parents have to work, and about 60-something% of them are really struggling with financially. And so they have got to keep their jobs. And so that's one of the things that we are really going to be focusing on is that we have got to get a standard definition to cover all these types that care for others.
I love that. Now, when I was looking at your website and we talked earlier, and then you've mentioned that taking care of the caregiver, the family, the community, there's also an element that you are managing when it comes to the children in the family, the teenagers particularly. Would you tell us a little bit about what you do there?
Yes. Also, during my research and everything, I realized that we have really our children are called that are helping with disabled parents or ailing, or maybe they're helping with their aging grandparents, or they're helping with their brother or sister has special needs. Those are called youth caregivers, and they're unseen workers that are helping support the family. These children are at high risk for depression. Research shows they're falling behind in school, a lot of them, and they don't feel like they belong because they're sort of losing some of their childhood experiences because they may have to go home and cook dinner for the family. And then the parents are so exhausted themselves. They're working maybe. They've got several children. And sometimes these youth caregivers are falling between the cracks. So when we developed our self-care programs, we had a UNCC PhD mental health and professor. She and a PhD student actually wrote our program, and the PhD student taught it. That's on our site, and that's actually free because it's for the parent and the teen between 13 and 19. And it's a self-contained self-care program that opens that conversation where that child feels free to talk about what they're feeling.
And they're getting some attention, so to speak. Somebody's listening to them, which I love. Well, let me step back for a second and ask you, where are you located? Where's your nonprofit located?
Concord, North Carolina.
And do you work with people in person and virtually?
We only do group training. We don't do coaching of individual caregivers. Now, I've had people reach out to me, and I will send them resources for therapists that deal with special needs parents, that have children or children themselves or whatever. I will send them resources, but we don't do or don't have the staffing, and we are not therapists and we're not healthcare workers.
I got you. So you would be a good partner to put on the Victory Advantage website, because podcasts that we do, we talk to people with disabilities, but we also talk to their caregivers and professionals like yourself that can help all of them, put the puzzle together. That would be great. So we can talk about that later.
The Soaring Through Adversity podcast is presented by Victory in Time. Victory in Time's mission is to help executives, leaders, and business owners excel in their faith, lives, and work. Through speaking engagements, one-on-one mentoring, and our mastermind groups, known as Victory Circles, Victory in Time wants to help you become the best leader you can be. Find out more at victoryintime.com. Also, don't forget to pick up your copy of the Soaring Through Adversity book, Life Lessons to Lead Triumph and Rise Above. All net proceeds from sales of the Soaring Through Adversity book benefit Victory Advantage.
Tell me, is there a certain demographic that you serve? Is there a certain area, or is it open to anybody?
When we started, we were going to focus mainly on Cabarrus and Mecklenburg counties just because of our resources, because we're scaling to growth. We're in a growth period and building the foundation of the nonprofit. But once we went out on social media, I've had people from the West Coast to the Northeast. I had all kinds of contact. I've even spoken to an international nonprofit that's actually sent our flyers to other countries.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know, to make a self. And what was really interesting to me is when I went out to see who were going out to the self-care videos when we got them up last October, and the second largest country besides the U.S. that are accessing them was India. 20% of India was some of the ones that were accessing those self-care videos, and we had about 680 when I looked at it in November, but we had almost 1,000 go out to that site by the end of December.
That is terrific. Now I'm getting ready to ask you about that. When we spoke, you talked to me about this, and you also talked to me about a grant that you got that was substantial, and it helped you do a particular thing that you had, I believe it was 14 short months to put together. And I believe this is what you're talking about, that you're being able to share internationally. So would you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes. When we started the nonprofit and I set up our training programs, because I'm a 25-year plus trainer, corporate trainer, and did that 5 years. Now it's almost 7 years of research on all these issues with burnout and things. I would go within a 50-mile radius of Charlotte to go do workshops and speaking and things like that. But I knew the demand. We were trying to keep it in the road, keep the horse before the cart, because then once you step out there, you've opened that Pandora box. And I knew that with all the stuff that we teach in our holistic program, it wouldn't be easy to really teach someone else that. So I thought, I've got to get these on video. I've got to get it out there and where we can expand to the caregivers. So we applied to CCME Foundation, which is part of Constellation Quality Health. And out of 105 applications, only 14 got funded, and we were one of those, and we were only 8 months old. They saw the value in those programs.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's huge. That's huge. Give me just a few names of the videos that you've created.
The parent self-care is for parents, and we call it parent self-care because a lot of parents do not hear caregiver, and some get offended. I found out when we went to expos, they do not want to be called a caregiver. Someone told me the other day, even an adult son caring for his parents really got upset because someone called him a caregiver, and he was a son. So, I mean, you never know when people are going to get upset because sometimes caregiving, that word's a stigma to some people. It's amazing.
What do they consider themselves? That's interesting.
A son. He's a son that take care of his mom and dad. I was in a meeting and someone was telling me, and I thought, oh my God. So I've had to be so careful. I was reading some information about children with Down syndrome. Some parents, they try to normalize their life and they're part of the family and they're their children. And some really, parent got upset with me at an expo because I asked her if she's a caregiver. And she said, no, I am a parent. And boy, she just walked off. I mean, it hurt her feelings and it really shook me up. And I thought, Carolyn, you need to start researching and know how to talk to people. I had to learn a lot from that. So we have the parent self-care. Some of the parents that have foster children are really struggling because some of the children they get have mental health issues.
Yeah.
So these are great for the foster children, adoptive parents, special needs kids. Also, if they're on the spectrum, learning disabilities. And actually, the program, Chapter 1 talks about if you have children with special needs or chronic illness or something. Actually, Chapters 2 through 8 will help anyone on how to minimize burnout or, to try to help not get burnout, or it helps them with stress and worry. So we have the parent self-care program. And then the next one, I believe, is our grandparent self-care. And grandparent self-care came about because they're grandparents and they may not consider themselves caregivers. So we gave them the label they hear. And a lot of them are the primary caregivers of their grandchildren because their parents are passed away, they're on drugs, they're in prison. But these grandparents are already aging and having health conditions. So they're seniors, so it's a big challenge. So we talk to them about self-care, but Chapters 2 through 8 are the same concepts we teach for the holistic program. The same one in parent self-care. The next one is senior self-care. So we made one for aging, caring for aging. It's just like I'm a senior taking care of my disabled husband with a stroke and aphasia, and he's a senior. And so when you have a senior, so the spouse is taking care of them or the partner, they may already have health conditions themselves. And a lot of times they won't prioritize their well-being. They feel guilty if they feel like it's selfish if they take care of themselves.
The thing is, if you don't take care of yourself, you're not there physically or mentally to stay whole and to be able to take care of who you're supposed to be loving and caring for. But it sounds like that when you started, it was like one size circle and it ended up being universal and with so many different other opportunities to help people than you originally thought. So you're growing in leaps and bounds.
Yes. And then the fourth self-care is called Caregiver Lifeline. And that's sort of the catch-all for everyone that's not labeled a parent, a grandparent, or whatever. that actually all of them could just watch Caregiver Lifeline because we teach the same concepts in it. And then our 5th program is what we talked about, Speak Up for Teens. It's for youth caregivers 13 to 19 age. It's for the parent and the teen to watch. So those are out there free, and we also have a way on there that they can download our digital flyer where they can share it with other parents and other caregivers.
Yeah, I saw that. That's very informative. If you could pick out 5 recommendations that you teach or emphasize with your clients, like you've mentioned self-care, what are like 4 others that you can think of that are terms that you use that you instruct and emphasize with your clients?
Okay, when I teach caregivers in workshops, we have a holistic program. So I teach the workshop, and then we have a program called Caregiver Focused Wellbeing Program. It's on the website, and there's 10 concepts that we teach. But I'm going to talk more about 4 of them, but I'll give you a few of them. We got nutrition on there. We know that's important. Exercise is very, very important. Setting healthy boundaries, self-love and compassion, journal writing, effective communication. So what I want to tell you that changed me from the inside out, that made a difference in me finding peace, was my self-love. And people say, why do you put self-love in a training on how to take care of your well-being? Because 85% of people, I read an article, or is actually a research, 85% of people do not feel like they're good enough. And the reason that we teach it is if we are people pleasers and we do not feel like we're good enough, we will not set healthy boundaries to protect our energy and emotions.
Boundaries.
Is in the goalpost.
Yes.
And give to everybody else, and will not self-love and self-compassion for ourselves. When I started practicing self-love, and you have to practice it, and we have a video out there on it in the e-learning videos that tells you and shows you how to practice self-love. I started practicing it, and it changed me from the inside out. I quit judging myself as much. I kept thinking I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing a good enough for Morgan, and I'm not a good caregiver, and I'm not smart enough, and I can't do this nonprofit because, am I smart enough to learn all this? I was in the corporate world, I wasn't in the nonprofit. Don't think any of that now. Now I just know I'm doing the best I can every day. I'm going to say no if I'm going to protect my energy, because one of the things that I say is it's my responsibility as my husband's caregiver to take care of his caregiver.
But what you just described is something that so many people needs to do and should do and help them, because that is so beneficial to your mental health. It's going to benefit you physically, but that is so powerful for your mental health. And you've covered a lot of it. You've put together a complete program, and I've watched some of the videos. I plan on watching more. And I'll encourage, our listeners to do the same thing. Okay. When we were talking, you used an analogy to me about 9-inch plate and 12-inch plates. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes. When I start doing the workshop and the self-care video, it's about 60 minutes long. It's not that long, and it's in chapters where you can just watch it as you have time. In there, I talk about that we all are under chronic stress usually, because what happens is we have a 9-inch plate we're eating out of, which represents our time and our energy every day. But we have a 12-inch plate of responsibilities. How many of you feel that?
Absolutely.
And so that gap between the 9-inch of our time and energy and that 12-inch of responsibilities ends up being chronic stress on our body. And when we have that chronic stress long term, it affects you with illnesses, possible diseases, and possible addictions. And so that further, if you get into crisis of chronic stress and then you go into burnout, and you get it on addictions of drugs and alcohol and gambling and internet and eating and everything, this goes into deteriorating the family. And what happens is when we get addictions in there and other problems, or you get sick, then who does it directly affect? The very vulnerable ones in our family we're trying to take care of, and their care deteriorates. The other day I was on a Zoom call, and of course I always open my mouth, and people probably want to muffle me. I know, but whatever. Whatever, whatever. That this lady on there was from a nonprofit, and she says, I don't understand why that child abuse is going up right now with us. We're trying to figure out why this is going up because that's what their nonprofit does. And so I had to speak up, and I said, when parents get in or whoever their guardians get into this chronic stress and they get towards burnout and upset, they do not have much patience, and they lose their patience, and they hurt the one they're caring for. They lose it because they're overextended, they're exhausted. It's a very serious thing letting it go into where you get into burnout. And all of us know how we snap at our family, when we're tired. Yeah, these people are exhausted. Our caregivers and our parents are exhausted.
And there's a big difference in being tired and being exhausted. That's a whole new level. I find it interesting because I was always in, I own my own business, and I was in that arena for 34 years, and it was about profit. When I had my business, I would always want to mentor people and help people and give back to nonprofits and things like that. And one of the things that I believe happens to us is, and it sounds similar to you, God puts us in situations where things happen to us that we can either let it make us better or let it make us bitter. And it seems like that we've been able to take what we've learned and turn it into lessons. And for us, that ended up being a nonprofit. And, for me, it was the brain tumor. Then my stepdaughter had a stroke at 29. And in the beginning, Ray's brother had Downs. And then watching him be a caregiver, we just felt like God led us down that path. And with you being a caregiver for so long, and clearly with all you've done, you're a lifelong learner, to help you help other people. I'm sure you feel the same way, that God has put us on a path to help others in similar situations.
Yes, and I respect anybody's belief, whether they're spiritual, religious, or whatever. If they're a parent or caregiver, we're here for them. I speak sometimes when I'm in churches in the environment that actually God put it on my heart is what I feel to start this. I think He heard the prayers of the caregivers and the parents, because I was burdened for 5 years before I made the decision to step forward, because I had to think of the realities of, I had a disabled husband that was declining with dementia, that had a stroke and has aphasia. Yeah, I had to face my age, and I had never run a nonprofit. And I knew they'd be raising money and doing all this stuff. And I just thought, how am I going to do it, God? You keep this on me for 5 years. And He would not let up. And I knew I had to do it. So I just stepped forward, and He showed me the image when I was meditating and praying, that He would have stones in the stream right in front of me if I would just walk, that He would make a way. And we don't even have time to tell you all the blessings and how people have stepped forward to help us.
That's beautiful. Let me ask you, as you look back on your journey with the nonprofit, tell me about one of the biggest blessings or success stories. And I know success can be deemed a lot of different ways, but could you tell us about one that you saw in one position that ended up with your help being in another position in life?
A person, is that what you're saying?
Yes, like an individual that you might have spoken to or saw your video, somebody that you changed their life.
I had a lady stand up in a workshop last year, and she just pointed at me and she said, "You are from God."
Oh my gosh.
And that brought tears. I mean, I knew that He had put it on my heart to be the vessel. And our team have been the vessels. Now I'm going to start crying. that. And then also another thing that really, I was on a virtual call with some people that had chronic illnesses. Before they got the chronic illness, they had taken care of others. They were caregivers. And I had two of them that were crying there and said, "Where were you when we were in this?"
Oh my gosh.
See, so unseen. They don't feel seen. They don't feel understood. And the hard part, the caregivers, a lot of them don't want to be seen because they don't want to act like they're complaining they have to take care of their loved one. They don't want to admit that they're sad and they have lonely days. And a lot of them feel like, well, you and I are very strong women. It is very hard for me. Now I'll ask for help.
Yes.
I used to would not ask for help. Oh, I can do it. I can do it. And now I ask my daughter for help and I'd let them help me because I know that I don't have the energy to do everything and that I do need help sometimes.
You know, that is coming from our corporate life, our business life, where women strive to be independent. And that's not always the best thing. Just like you said, you know, we all need help and it's okay to ask for it. That's what we need to do. Well, those were great stories, but I got a question for you. Tell me, before we come to a close, what is it that you need for your nonprofit? What are you looking for?
We have got funders because we're virtual and we have got minimal expenses compared to a lot of nonprofits, and we're all volunteer. We don't pay any salaries.
Yes.
So we're doing good, but the thing is to grow, we need donations. But the other thing is that we're really pushing is that we need people to help us bring awareness because we cannot get to all the corners to all these parents and caregivers. We're the umbrella, if you think about it, under every type of caregiver situation, whether they're part-time caring for someone with cancer, Alzheimer's, or special needs kids. And we got all these different organizations coming to us, and we're trying to partner with certain ones that'll give us reciprocal energy because we don't have the staffing. So what we can do is get these self-care videos out there, and if they can help us bring people aware, see, that doesn't take a lot of our energy, which we don't have the staffing, but it doesn't cost them any money to do that. You see what I'm saying?
I do. I do. Well, good. Well, tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you. How can they see the videos?
They can get in touch with us through info@caregivermentalwellness.com.
Okay.
Go to caregivermentalwellness.com and go to our contact page. If they want us to speak, do something virtual, do a workshop, if they want to recommend someone that would another organization in their town that would partner with us. We've had people in counties in North Carolina contact us this last week. They want to become advocates for us because I can take them through an orientation and they can go out in their communities and be advocates. And whenever they have time in their faith-based organizations, in their clubs, have a speak, whatever. So there's all kinds of ways they can help just as they have time to bring the unseen caregiver and parent, make them seen in their communities.
You know, that's interesting that you say that. And you mentioned one of the things I was going to talk about earlier about the reciprocal energy. And you just saying that with all of us teaming together as nonprofits, you're certainly somebody that I could recommend when I go and I speak about how we help people with disabilities or, like you're saying, chronic illnesses that is causing disabilities, and talking to caregivers to refer you or to figure out ways that I can help inform them and speak to them directly as well, which is that's many times who we're talking to is those people that's giving care. They're loving and giving care to somebody else. And
Yeah, Renee, there's one thing that I wanted to point out. I talked about everything we do on the caregiver side, but one thing that we do, I have 16 plus years as a VP of HR. And when I was doing all this research, I found out about how it was impacting the workforce. And you know, the numbers come out that we had about 63 million caregivers in the U.S., whether they're full-time or part-time caregivers, like adult children or part-time from a distance maybe. That actually several trusted sources state that number is underestimated because they don't hear the label and they're not answering the surveys. So the numbers could be between 105 and 111 million in the U.S., which is up near 40% of the population are some type of caregiver. And so the thing is that 70% of our workforce are caregivers, part-time or full-time. And people are going to start, according to a Harvard professor's study in 2019, they're going to start going to caring companies. And so what we do is I wrote a manual to tell companies how to implement a caring environment. So I actually go out and talk to businesses on how they need to start humanizing the workforce because they're going to start losing their top talent because 60% of the caregivers are women, and these women are getting top degrees in college.
Yeah.
So this has become a social crisis.
That is amazing. That's something that we've talked about, and one of the big things that Victory Advantage does is employment for people with disabilities. And that's something that we like to do is to educate corporations, companies, owners that employing somebody with disabilities is easier than you would think. They're the most loyal people that you can imagine. And like what you're saying with the caregivers, if they care enough to give to someone at their home and still have a job, they're good for your business.
They tend to be really caring people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And are creative, very creative. So yes, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And go ahead and give us your website information one more time.
Okay, it's caregivermentalwellness.com.
Very good. Well, good. Carolyn, thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Okay, thank you, Renee, and thank you, Anna. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for the Soaring Through Adversity podcast. New episodes are released on the first of every month. To learn more about our mission and passion, visit thevictoryadvantage.org. That is THE, victoryadvantage.org. There you'll find ways to get involved as a volunteer, donate, or apply for funding that supports individuals with IDD or physical disabilities in Union County, North Carolina, and the greater Charlotte, North Carolina metro area. You will also find a podcast tab on our website where you can click on the link to our YouTube channel. And I hope while you're there, you will subscribe. Additionally, you can see links that take you directly to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. We are also active on all social media platforms. Thank you again for tuning in and for your incredible support. We couldn't have made this impact without you. And remember, faith first, not last, will lead to living victoriously beyond limitations. Until next time, keep soaring.